We are Southeastern 16. That's Chris Lee. I'm Chase Robinson as we continue with our predictions and previews of this week's games across the SEC. And we have landed on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. They have Toledo this week. We'll talk about it in just a second as it will be a 6:30 Central kickoff. You can watch the game on ESPNU. Mississippi State, an 11.5-point favorite. They've got the over-under at 60. Mississippi State, if you look at the projected final, 36-24 over Toledo. Should be an interesting game there. We'll talk about it in just a second. But first, let's talk about BetOnline. They're the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. If you think you know your stuff, you can get in on a $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker or one of the over 150 slots games. Head over to the website today to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, Chris, Mississippi State. We'll start with the Bulldogs when they have the football. They went out to the western part of the United States, take on Arizona State last week. They put up 56 points against Eastern Kentucky, 23 last week in that loss, 30-23. Blake Shapen, quarterback for the Bulldogs, has 515 yards on the year, 5 touchdowns. What do you make of this matchup when the Bulldogs have the football?
Yeah, I watched most of that game last week with Arizona State. Of course, they were down 30-3 and made a comeback at the last. I feel like you trusted Jeff Levy to coach this offense, and he's kind of giving you what you thought you would. You know, look, again, gave up too many points the first half and couldn't stop the running game late. I'll get into that. But I think Shapen a good fit for their offense. They've got a multifaceted running game at this point. It's not a superstar offense, but we noted before the season just how many different targets they had. That they really did, I thought, really well in the portal at adding receivers and tight ends and all those things. I think that's starting to come to fruition. I thought Shapen played pretty well in the second half last week as they mounted their comeback. So, yeah, I think I want to see, and I'll get to the Toledo's defensive line. I mean, I think I want to see how State runs the ball in this game this week. Again, and maybe kind of where they settle. Keyvone Lee was a guy that we sort of highlighted before the season as a guy who might kind of be their go-to back. He was their leading carrier last week, 9 times for 35 yards. But on the whole, they ran it for less than 1 yard a carry. Now, that includes some sacks. Offensively, they got the ball to Kevin Coleman, who had a huge play late in that game to kind of get them within striking distance, took a short pass, and, it was an 80-yard reception. Almost all that was him just outrunning defenders. They got Seydou Traore, who's a good tight end. Jordan Mosley has stepped up and become kind of a go-to target for them. So I think I've got more questions about their ability to run the ball at this point than I do to throw the ball. Toledo, defensively, lost a couple of superstars to the draft, at least lost a first rounder there, but it's got a pretty highly regarded defensive line. Darius Alexander, probably the best guy of that group. Maxon Hook, is the safety, was a preseason All-MAC pick, and they got Brandon Alls, who's got 2 picks so far. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the defender to watch, 21 tackles so far. But Toledo, defensively has been okay. Offense is kind of an interesting side of the matchup, but I think State's got the edge here. I want to see, though, if they can run the ball, because that's been an issue.
Yeah, it has been, and when Toledo has the football, they're 2-0 on the year. They've put up 49 points against Duquesne and 38 points against UMass, and so it's obvious that that Toledo can put some points on the board.
Yeah, and look, statistically, their defense has been pretty good. They allowed 284 to Duquesne last week, and I think got outgained by UMass. They kind of made up the difference on special teams. I'll get to that in just a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, defensively, I think is, where we feel like maybe they match up okay. Offensively, I've got some concerns about them. They did get a bunch of points last week, but they had just 12 first downs and 258 yards. I feel like they're kind of struggling at quarterback, although the numbers there are kind of interesting. Tucker Gleason, 23 for 47 for 377, under 50%, but he's also got 6 touchdowns and no picks, which is kind of interesting. So the mistakes, whatever he makes in terms of accuracy, defenses aren't making him pay for it. 8 for 50 rushing. They don't run the ball very well. 4.1 yards per carry against weak opposition. They got a couple of good receivers in Jerjuan Newton and Junior Vandeross. As for Mississippi State, I just feel like they couldn't stop the run last week. Cam Scattlebow had 250-something yards rushing. I feel like their front seven wore down and maybe got tired. Arizona State was just kind of in run out the clock mode late. They didn't score any points in the second half, but I think that was what was problematic for State last week, was just that front seven and getting pushed around by Arizona State. So that's kind of what I'm watching there, is can Toledo run the ball better than it has in the past, because that's what was really successful against the Bulldogs a week ago.
Yeah, so when it comes to predictions for this game, Chris, I'm going to go Mississippi State. I know that's 11.5 is the spread, but I like the Bulldogs. I think they get it done, and maybe I think they a little bit more than that. I think this is a chance for Mississippi State to show some folks what they can do offensively, and kind of bounce back from that loss. So I'm going to take the Bulldogs here.
Yeah, I don't think this is a runaway Mississippi State game. Probably Toledo under Jason Candle, this is his 9th year. They haven't had a losing season yet. Now, I know the MAC is probably not what it was 10 or 20 years ago, but they've been super consistent. He's been able to continue to build a program in an era where programs like Toledo just get killed in the portal. And again, he lost, I think, a first rounder to the draft last year, which is kind of a miracle that you can be at a level of that football outside the Power 5 anymore and still turn out first rounders, given the way the Power 5 teams pick them off. I think the scenario you would fear if you're Mississippi State is a team that could just come in and run the ball down your throat. That's just not really what Toledo is. Again, a lot of respect for what they've done. Their first 2 games so far, Duquesne and UMass, that's not going to be anywhere near the talent level that Mississippi State's got. I don't think that the style is right for Toledo to come into Starkville and pull an upset. But again, you've got to respect the program history and what they've done under Jason Candle and the way he's kept them competitive. So I don't see Mississippi State winning this by 40 points or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if they covered here. And I would be surprised if they lost outright.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, Chris. We'll have you covered on this game. All the rest of the SEC, we'll have the Saturday night reaction show. Best way to get that, subscribe to our channel if you have not already. Like this video, spread the word about Southeastern 16 with your friends, and we keep you covered on SEC football, basketball, and baseball year round. For Chris Lee, I'm Chase Robinson. We are Southeastern 16, brought to you by BetOnline.